So before we get into the video, I'd just like to say I haven't done one of these videos before, so I'd like a bit of feedback of as there's things I can improve, as is or take out sort of stuff, because I've tried to get as much information as I can. I haven't exactly put it in the exactly what is pros and cons, but I kind of have, as is haven't done one of these before, so. And as I don't know exactly, I sort of do but don't know how to put everything. And I've just sort of I've got actually a script pretty much written down. I was going to do some dot points. I might do that more so for the other robots. I don't know yet, as is that will depend on the feedback, as there's things to take out or improve. And that, anyway, other than that, let's get into this. So, the follower Assaultron, fast moving, deadly precise fighter, great in nearly every scenario, but what are the pros and cons? So, when it does come to the Assaultron, it is best when it comes to, obviously, melee combat, as it is essentially built around that sort of whole melee sort of thing, as sort of that being an assassin, humanoid type shape. As is pretty much very, to a degree, very efficient in most of the buildings and tight corners. Although, one thing I have noticed, depending on the location, it does get confused at times. The locations I did test, now I didn't test, I wouldn't exactly say I haven't tested a lot of locations, but I tried 2 locations, which one was with super mutants. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, and the other place was Dunwich Borers. Or that one, or the mining area thing where we got all those raiders. Those are 2 places I tested them. I did test one at Concord, and with the sort of more open area, it did kind of perform better because I was able to sort of jump around more. So this is one sort of thing to note, is they are pretty much one of the better ones to use in tighter tight corner locations, but it can get them a little bit confused at times. So, again, being surrounded by the sort of assassin-y type build sort of thing, they are obviously best suited with melee weapons. Also, best to essentially put on the Assaultron head laser for a strong secondary tap, as the normal Assaultron head will actually often leave the Assaultron just standing there if the enemy is actually on the isn't on the ground or in certain structures. As you'll probably see, if I can get to the right background stuff, background footage to match up, the place at the Super Mutants, where I go into fight one, oddly enough, I can go in through the door fine, but the Assaultron doesn't. I don't know why that is. It is very peculiar, I will say. I don't know if that's from the sort of the next gen update has broken their AI or something. I do not know on that yet. But yeah, as is, they will essentially stand outside some structures, and as is there, at least with their head lasers, they will obviously charge it up. I've sort of noticed a bit more. But anyway, so yeah, as this acts as the secondary or a secondary attack kind of thing, and as is its ranged attack. And as is, it will often, as is sort of, as is, this can vary, but yeah, it will often charge up the head laser more, depending if the enemies are out of reach or high up. Now, if there is stairs, and this is interesting, if there are stairs involved, you've kind of got a 50-50 chance for the Assaultron to go up them, oddly enough. Same sort of thing with certain structures. Some stairs, they seem to go up fine. Others, they'll just stand there like it's a brick wall. So I don't know what's going on there. Can be brought down reasonably easily, actually, as is, depending on the situation. But usually what I've seen is essentially when it comes to something like a super unit with a minigun, missiles or explosives, explosive turrets, or enough enemies with automatic weapons, they'll essentially shred straight through them. The Assaultron will commonly only attack as well. Another thing I still say would be possibly bugged out because of the could be the next gen update. I don't know yet. but yeah, it will commonly only attack when it gets attacked. So, sort of strategy I've come up with using them. I don't actually have footage of this stuff, but essentially, if playing as a sniper or a rifle build, what you can essentially do, sort of better with the sniper sort of thing than the rifle, but they both sort of work, is essentially using the follow attack command to get it to obviously attack whatever you're actually going for. Sort of good thing with a rifle or sniper rifle is you can pick off sort of the weak enemies that you can pick off easily, and then essentially send in the Assaultron for the harder one as you give it backup support. Because obviously, again, the Assaultron is a up-in-your-face fighter sort of thing, but it is best suited, obviously, for a melee build of yourself. If you're doing, like, power armor, that can be really good. If you've got, like, Pain Train, you can knock enemies down, and the Assaultron will help finish them off. Now, when it comes to the enemy Assaultrons, they do kind of function sort of similar. Oddly enough, I have noticed they seem to be... Well, as there's different variants, well, I've sort of noticed become more aggressive, and this will be, I'll sort of explain this actually later on with, well, actually, I'll explain it now, actually. Oh, yeah, one of the builds I've got, I can't remember which one it is, I think it might be the Stealth Blade one, but one of the variants that I made of the Assaultron was essentially more aggressive in terms of its combat. And when I say aggressive, I mean as in, like, it would not move faster, but it would sort of attack more often, so to speak. It essentially go berserk, I suppose, probably the best way to explain it. Not all the time, but more often. But yeah, so with the enemy Assaultrons, there are about 4 to 5 different faction types, which are your standard Assaultron, your military, your gunner, Rust Devil, and Nuke World. So most common weapons used by them are the hand claws, which you'll usually just be your basic Assaultrons. Shock claws, I think, same sort of thing. Other things they will use is usually stealth blades, which will usually be... I've actually got the page up about this. I think those usually are the Dominators, and then you got Invaders. So I think it might be the Invaders are the shock ones, and the Invaders are the stealth blades, and that's for sort of the more standard / military ones, or the gunner variants. And when it comes to the shish kebabs and construction claw ones, hammer saws, I haven't actually seen a hammer saw variant yet, or at least one with 2. But as is, that will be one for later on, of one of my own builds. But yeah, they will usually be Rush Devils, and you've got Nuke World variants, which they all have pretty much the Invader and Dominator variants, and they will usually have a automatic laser rifle type hand and 1 claw. Now, I didn't really test out too much on the ranged one, because all the stuff I've found out and I have sort of tested in the past, or like, when I say test in the past, I mean as in, like, in my time playing Fallout, I've mucked around robots a bit, and yeah, I've personally found, at least for me, Assaultrons don't really work well, obviously, for that, the gunplay sort of thing. They're better at melees, because obviously they are designed to be as up close in your face, not mid-range sort of stuff. But as is, yeah, I don't, depending on it, actually, as is, it will sort of vary as is with their gunplay, as is, because oddly enough, as is, the Assaultrons for the Nuke World stuff, as is, from what I understand, and as is, correct me if I'm wrong, but for what I've personally seen, they don't seem to sort of function sort of the same as all the other Assaultrons, so to speak, because obviously they are different faction ones, so I don't know, their AI could be completely different on how they're meant to fight, so I can't be 100% sure on that. I do not 100% know, but yeah, for what I have seen, they don't seem to be the sort of classic Assaultron combat style type thing. So onto the different versions of them that I built. Now, one thing I did find out is weapons and health will actually scale to your level. But here's how this stuff works. So, if you build your Assaultron or whatever you're going to build at, say, level 20, and then you'll say level 25 later on, you'll say, I don't know exactly how much it's going to have, but just say it had, I don't know, say 300 health, and then it did, say, 30 points of damage with for each claw or something. Essentially, that would increase by, as is, don't know exactly how much. I think one I tested, I can't remember. It was like 3. One was one of my characters was at like level 60. Another one was at like 131. But the health scaled to a little bit over times 3 per, like essentially 3 points per level, and the melee didn't. It sort of increased by double roughly. So that's interesting. I personally only found that out the other day because as I've played robots for a long, played with the robot sort of stuff for a while. Never found out about that until as is the other day. So that was actually quite a big shocker for me. And yeah, so how you actually do that is you swap their legs out. You don't, for I've seen, you don't always have to actually replace them, but you just have to essentially click on the legs and then sort of swipe, move it up and down to the different leg variants and then exit out, and it should level it up. So yeah, bizarre sort of thing. You'd think they'd level up properly, standard like all the other followers, but apparently not. So anyway, let's get into the variants. So the base variants, so that's the one, obviously the, so that one has, for the head, I went with the Assaultron head laser with factory armor. The torso, Assaultron torso with factory armor and front factory armor and rear factory armor. For the arms, for both arms, I went with same thing, factory armor, Assaultron hand claw, and no hand armor. So with that as well, some weapons you can have hand armor for. It's what they kind of, this, well, how, I don't know how you explain it. It's sort of like they're not actually their default weapons, but it's the weapons that are actually designed specifically for them. That's not on all robots, but for a lot of them. And then the waist, I mean for the legs, I went with no waist armor and right and left factory armor. And so that's obviously the base variant of what you'll essentially get for that. I don't know yet. I don't know how I was going to do this because I'll probably, if I can have it edited in the video, I'll essentially have the stats for it. But possibly when it comes to the weapon damage, I'm not going to put in the weapon damage just for that reason of the level can change that. But what I've noticed is the armor doesn't change. So if your robot has 200 max armor at level 1, it's going to have like 200 max level at level 100 for what I've essentially found out. So I'll just be doing pretty much the actual armor rating and what they are, if I can get that to work. As is, don't know what I can do yet, but I will find that one out. Now onto the Hammersaw build, which is my bleed one. Now as well, I do have a mod installed, it's called Better Mod Descriptions, which shows pretty much what amount of like effect. So for the Hammersaw, I went again with for the head was the Assaultron head laser with the Gorgon helmet. I believe that's how you pronounce it. The Assaultron torso with Warmonger serrated plates and rear barbaric plate. For the arms, both arms warmongering serrated plates and the hammer saws, and no hand armor available for that. So with that is the whole thing of hammer saws technically aren't designed for them. Obviously not technically designed for any robot, but yeah, certain weapons essentially take away that slot, which is interesting. And for the legs, I went with mid hydraulic frame and left and right warmonger serrated plate. So essentially those, each part should give about 2 points of extra bleed. Now, one thing I have tested for the bleeds thing I found out, because that says it essentially adds like 2% bleed, or it's either 2 points or 2% for bleed. But interesting thing, I tried it with the stealth blades, did not give bleed. So if you're going to go with the Hammersaw build, you go with the Warmonger shredded plates. Because of that reason, that enhances the bleed. So for the Shish Kebab build, I went with the Shish Kebab / electricity one, because Shish Kebab actually works with essentially energy build. So yeah, went with the head Assaultron head laser with the Gorgon helmet. That increases the energy output, or the damage output of the actual head laser. So for the torso, Assaultron torso with front voltaic, I believe that's the pronunciation of it, voltaic frame, rear voltaic frame, and for the torso mod, actually, I went with the Tesla coils to get that little bit of extra electrical damage. For the arms, right and left arm, or left and right arm, the voltaic frame, hands, Shish Kebab, and no hand armor available. The legs, Assaultron legs with mid hydraulic frame, and left and right leg voltaic. Now for the one, I believe the Stealth Blade one was the one that acted more sort of vicious in the testing. So for the Stealth Blade, this is essentially just not actually raw damage output, so to speak. For what I understand, the Hammersaw, I think, is actually the one that does the most damage, but also I think has the weakest armor, funnily enough. Anyway, so yeah, the head, Assaultron head laser with Gorgon helmet or hydraulic frame. That depends on what you want to go for with that. And then so Assaultron torso with front hydraulic frame and rear hydraulic frame. Both arms with the hydraulic frame, and hands are stealth blades. And then with that, you can do hand hydraulic frame. Oddly enough, I believe it is the right hand. If you give the hydraulic frame to the right hand for the Assaultron, it's out of place pretty much. You might be able to see it in the footage, or essentially the actual arm part is like, it's meant to be straight, but it like points upwards. It's really weird. And yeah, for the legs, mid hydraulic frame, and left and right leg is hydraulic frame as well. So as is, they are, like I said, they are pretty much all very similar. They essentially, it's what I found to sort of maximize that specific purpose. So obviously like I said earlier, the Hammersaw one, which is the bleed, you go with the pieces that work for the bleed specifically. The Shish Kebab, again, energy, so you go with all things that increase their energy. Stealth Blade, that's essentially just damage output, so you want to go with your highest armor. Now, I have sort of tested in the past. I didn't test it this time around, but for what I remember is essentially the Hammersaw kind of does the most damage, but what you essentially, again, it's sort of the trade-off. It's either essentially for the bleed is pretty much the lowest damage out of the three, well, technically the second lowest, but I'm taking out the base variant. So yeah, with the Hammersaw one, it does the most damage output, but has the lowest armor. The Shish Kebab one has sort of the mid armor and mid damage, but then the Stealth Blade one has sort of the lowest, well, actually no, I think actually the Shish Kebab actually, I believe, might be the lower damage, because I think the Shish Kebab only adds up to technically 90 damage all up, where the Stealth Blades are like 100. But we do also add on a bit of extra damage for that one, because again, we've got the Tesla coil one modification for the torso, so that will actually vary. So yeah, it's sort of, the way I look at it is essentially Stealth Blade is most armor, but not as strong weapons. Hammersaw is lightest armor, but best weapons, and Shish Kebab is essentially in that middle. Now, as is the Assaultron, as they sort of finish up, the Assaultron does, as is, make a pretty good bodyguard. As is, I will be doing ones of like, so what robot combinations make for like the best purveyors, and sort of moving turrets, because as is seen, they do level up, they won't, and they can move, they won't really be able to be as hit as much as turrets. So that's all stuff we'll be getting into another video. But as is, for me personally, I think every settlement should have at least a couple of Assaultrons, depending on the variant of what you want. As is, it all depends on exactly what you want to go for. Personally, I think I'd honestly go with probably the Hemisaur with the actual hydraulic armor. But as is, it's why I want to have different, throughout this, I want to have different variants. Because, yes, for the few I've sort of seen online already, and stuff I read online, pretty much everyone always says essentially, slap heap of hydraulic armor on it and give it like, whatever weapons, which I think is like the Hemisaurs do the most damage. But that's the thing, the Hemisaurs do bleed, and that's why I've put bleeding armor on them for that exact reason. That's thing, each sort of that thing, it adds those variants, but it makes it fits, their armor fits their weapons. That's what I'm trying to think of. Essentially, the armors fit the weapons, essentially, instead of slapping on like what's counted as the best. For that reason of, yes, Hemisaurs on hydraulic armor technically might be better in one way, but you don't get that extra bleed damage. That is, as is just that little bit difference. And yeah, as is, I did do pretty much most of my testing with the base variant for that reason of, I like to see that sort of thing. As is, depending on feedback I get for the second one, I'll take that into consideration on how to look at the next ones. As is, I've never done something like this before, so I don't exactly know what to do, so to speak. I sort of do, but I don't. And that, but yeah, as is, sort of finish up, as is, best to obviously, again, they are melee fighters, but they aren't exactly like the Assaultron, for the example. I mean, the Sentry Bot, they're a walking tank. Assaultrons are essentially, again, deadly precise fighters, so they're sort of like an assassin type thing. But with most assassin ones, they're good on the one target, not so good in a crowd. So that's just something to take away from this, is obviously when choosing your robot, is pick your situation, so to speak. If you know you're going to go probably somewhere where there's only going to be a few enemies, take on a few enemies. If you're going to go somewhere where there's going to, I don't know, you have to say, take out a Supermutant Behemoth or a Deathclaw, you go take something like the Assaultron for that reason. You sort of pick the pick the scenario for the robot, or pick the robot for the scenario, sort of thing. But anyway, hope everyone has enjoyed, and as is a bit of feedback on, as is things to take out, or to add, improve on, anything like that, just so I know for the next one. I probably won't get started on the next one. I don't know what the next one I'll be doing yet. I'll be doing them actually in alphabetical order, I think I'll be doing. So, I can't remember. I've already got it. Anyway, I've got it written down. But yeah, as is, bit of feedback of, as is, what to fix, and as is, I won't be perhaps starting on anything or the next one until, as is, I've looked at feedback, and as I get a bit of confirmation perhaps on what to change. Anyway, other than that, hope everyone has enjoyed, and I shall see everybody next time.